Okay, so let's unpack this. We live in a world that's, well, obsessed with followers, right? Constant noise, constant visibility. But what if the people making the biggest impact are actually operating intentionally out of sight?
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing we're seeing. Our sources are calling it something like alone but connected.
Hmm.
It's this new wave of digital solitude
Mm.
and the rise of what they term quiet
The deeper
influence.
lens.
We're
Okay.
looking at millions of people, founders, writers, consultants, creatives maybe,
Mm.
who are building these really successful careers, having significant impact. Some are even earning like 6 or 7 figures.
Yeah.
And they're doing it from solitude, often off camera, sometimes almost off grid.
Right, and this is where it gets really interesting, isn't it? It kind of challenges everything we think we know about success, needing visibility. It's not about isolation exactly. It's more like seeing digital solitude as a, well, a strategic advantage,
Mhm.
especially it seems among Gen Z and millennials.
Exactly. They're reframing it. And we're going to explore the tools they use, the foundations, really. Things like automation, async work setups, um, AI for content, perhaps. These are the things enabling these like one-person business models to really thrive.
Okay.
So our mission here is to understand this shift, this move from, loud influence
Yeah.
to quiet.
Less presence for potentially more depth,
Y-
more impact.
Yeah, precisely. And that shift is pretty profound when you look at the source material. It highlights how these sort of low-profile experts, they're generating really high-level impact, not through just, blasting social media posts everywhere,
Right.
but through really deep engagement, often in very specific, sometimes niche digital spaces. They use that solitude not just to avoid noise, but to cultivate this hyper-specialized expertise
Yeah.
in a really narrow field, which, makes them indispensable.
Okay, but how does that deep engagement, that hyper specialization actually translate into those, impressive 6, 7 figure incomes,
Yeah,
especially without the usual public profile? That feels counterintuitive.
it does. Yeah. And that's a really crucial question. It's generally not about selling to the masses. It's about providing very specific, high-value solutions, often to a select few clients or customers.
Ah, okay. So quality over quantity, massively.
Absolutely. Our sources show their reputation isn't built on reach, but purely on results, on the quality of their work. Clients find them, often through word of mouth, within these quite tight-knit professional circles.
So we're talking things like high-end consulting, maybe specialized software development.
Exactly, or exclusive educational content. Places where trust and proven results just speak way louder than, say, a million followers might.
It really does sound like a whole different paradigm for building a career. But let's talk about those tools you mentioned, automation, async work, AI. How specifically do they enable this intentional invisibility? How do they support these one-person powerhouses?
Oh, they're absolutely critical. I mean, think about it. Automation can handle so much of the mundane stuff, right? Like customer support FAQs or scheduling, maybe basic data entry. That frees up huge amounts of time.
Makes sense.
And async work, that allows for that deep, focused work time. No constant real-time pings and interruptions, which is essential if you're trying to solve complex problems or do really creative work. It lets you get into that flow state.
Right, that deep work.
Yeah. And then AI for content creation. Well, that makes a one-person operation incredibly scalable. It can help generate initial drafts or summarize research, maybe repurpose existing content really fast.
So these aren't just buzzwords then, they're like the practical engine behind it.
They really are. They're the foundational bits, allowing these solo operators to not just survive, but actually thrive and pull in those high-value returns, often without needing that big public stage.
This sounds incredibly appealing, I have to say, especially now with so much talk about social media burnout. The strategic choice to step back, what the sources call digital minimalism, it's not just about disconnecting, is it? It sounds more deliberate. Reducing noise for what? Mental clarity.
Precisely. And that mental clarity isn't just a nice to have. It directly translates into better business outcomes.
How so?
Well, it sharpens decision-making. It improves focus, obviously,
Yeah.
and it enhances creative strategy. It leads to demonstrably higher quality output, more effective problem solving. It's really about doing less, but doing it better.
Hmm.
By cutting down those digital distractions, these individuals can dive much deeper into complex issues, and that often leads to more innovative solutions, which in turn increases the perceived value of their work.
Okay, the benefits are definitely compelling, but, our deep dive must touch on the downsides too, right? What are the potential pitfalls or trade-offs here? It can't all be sunshine and 7 figure Slack dude.
No, you're absolutely right to ask that. It's powerful, but There are risks. I mean, beyond the obvious potential for loneliness if you don't actively manage your connections.
Hmm.
Our sources definitely flag the challenge of initial discovery. Like, how do people find you if you're intentionally quiet? That's a real hurdle.
Yeah, that makes sense. The build it and this will come fallacy.
Kind of. And there's also the risk of maybe isolating yourself from diverse perspectives,
Hmm.
the kind that often spark innovation when you're bouncing ideas around in more collaborative settings.
Right.
But importantly, the sources also talk about counter strategies. Things like actively joining curated mastermind groups, or maybe scheduling deliberate idea synthesis sessions, ways to maintain connection and get that diverse input.
So if we try and connect this to the bigger picture then, this deep dive seems to show that maybe in this age of burnout and visibility fatigue, quiet is actually becoming a real competitive advantage.
I think so.
Yeah.
It really highlights the power of doing less but doing it better, leveraging that mental clarity, that digital minimalism for better decisions, better focus, better strategy.
So thinking about this for you, the listener, what does this all mean? It raises a really interesting question, doesn't it? How might embracing some of this intentional invisibility, cultivating your own quiet influence, how might that lead to surprising impact or success in your work or even just your life?
Yeah, even without the big spotlight or a huge team behind you, could the most powerful move you make actually be stepping out of the spotlight for a bit?
Definitely something to mull over.